A World Where Every Life Blooms, Part 1. The Foundations of Humanthrivism. Chapter 1. The End of Capitalism as We Know It. On a cold morning in Seattle, a software engineer named Maya stood in line at a food bank, despite earning 6 figures. Her rent had spiked again, childcare cost more than her monthly paycheck, and her partner's cancer treatment had drained their savings. Maya wasn't lazy. She wasn't reckless. She was living proof that the system was no longer working, not even for the so-called privileged. In every major city today, you'll find these quiet contradictions. Teachers who can't afford housing, farmers drowning in debt while food rots unsold, gig workers powering billion-dollar apps with no benefits and no voice. These aren't the margins, they're becoming the middle. The very heart of modern capitalism is breaking open. And beneath the breakage, something is stirring. A beautiful machine with a broken compass. Capitalism, as originally envisioned, was an elegant engine, rewarding initiative, allocating resources through price signals, and fueling innovation through competition. It gave rise to modern infrastructure, medicine, technology, and global connectivity. But like any machine running too long without recalibration, it's now overheating, serving its own momentum more than its purpose. Profit has become the god, growth the gospel, and humanity the exhaust. We were promised freedom. What we got was freedom with an asterisk. Freedom to consume, if you can afford it. Freedom to work, if you can endure it. Freedom to speak, so long as you don't disrupt the market. Symptoms of a dying system. Let's name the fractures clearly. Wealth is hoarded. Just 1% of the world owns nearly half its wealth. Work is extractive. Burnout is rampant. Job insecurity is the norm. Passion is monetized or lost. The planet is burning. Capitalism externalizes costs. The economy grows. Ecosystems die. Democracy is bought. Campaigns are funded by corporations. Media is shaped by shareholders. Meaning is lost. We spend more. We feel less. Loneliness is the epidemic of the century. This isn't just a system failing a few people. It's a system devouring itself. And yet, we are taught to believe there is no alternative, that this is the price of progress, that questioning it is naive. But what if the most radical thing we can do is imagine something better? Enter Humanthrivism. Humanthrivism is not a utopia. It's a blueprint for a next chapter, a system designed for the complexity of now and the dignity of tomorrow. The name says it all, human. Because people are not economic units. We are creative, social, emotional beings. Thrive because survival is too low a bar. That is, because this is a framework, not a fantasy. A real workable alternative, where capitalism asks, what will it cost? Humanthrivism asks, will it help us thrive? A new compass for civilization. At the heart of humanthrivism is a simple shift. The economy must serve people, not the other way around. This philosophy unfolds through 9 guiding principles. 1. People over profit. Measure success by joy, dignity, and community, not just returns. 2. Integrated value index. Replace GDP with metrics that track well-being, education, ecology, and civic health. 3. Earn through contribution. Wealth comes from value added to society, not value extracted. 4. Cooperative competition. Compete with integrity. Collaborate for the common good. 5. Open access innovation. Knowledge for survival, health, climate, education is a public good. 6. Universal foundation guarantee. Secure the basics for all. Housing, food, healthcare, education, and a baseline income. 7. Democratic workplaces. Workers co-create, co-decide, and co-own. 8. Ecological balance mandate. Regeneration becomes the baseline, not an afterthought. 9. Time affluence culture. Productivity includes rest, relationships, and purpose. This isn't idealism. It's infrastructure for the soul. But what do we keep? Contrary to critiques, humanthrivism doesn't destroy entrepreneurship or markets. It evolves them. It retains the best of capitalism. Innovation, incentives, decentralization, responsiveness to supply and demand. But it integrates ethics, ecology, and equity as core design elements, not external corrections. The cracks are the clues. Across the globe, fragments of humanthrivism are already blooming. In Amsterdam, the city adopted donut economics, balancing human and planetary needs. In South Korea, the city of Seongnam guarantees youth a basic income and mentorship. In indigenous communities from the Amazon to Aotearoa, stewardship over ownership is sacred law. In Boulder, Colorado, solar co-ops and community land trusts create democratic access to energy and housing. In Finland, a pilot universal income reduced stress and increased entrepreneurship. These aren't footnotes. They're frontiers. We just haven't named them the same way or woven them into a cohesive system. Until now, we're already building it. Look at the neighborhood fridge on the corner. The open-source code that powers your favorite tools. The worker-owned cafe that closes on Sundays to rest. These are not small things. They are the early architecture of a new economy. A new story wants to be told. Capitalism is not our destiny. It was our chapter. One that lifted us, then locked us. We thank it. We outgrow it, and we begin again. Humanthrivism offers a new story, where humans are not cogs but co-creators, where the measure of a nation is the joy of its people, where every life, not just every market, blooms. Mini call to action. What part of your life is already aligned with humanthrivism? Where do you already choose contribution over consumption, community over convenience, rest over rush? Whatever your answer is, that's where the future is already unfolding. Chapter 2. What comes after? Naming the next system. Long before the first skyscraper rose, before steam powered the rails or code streamed across the globe, everything began with a name. Not a blueprint, not a budget. A name. The act of naming is the act of beginning. In the beginning was capitalism, not the idea, but the name. Before it shaped nations, influenced wars, and carved our daily rituals, it was simply an emerging structure looking for form. But once it was named, it gained gravity. It became not just a mechanism, but a myth. A god in 3 letters, GDP. Now, as that system begins to collapse under its own contradictions, the most radical, necessary, and overlooked step we can take is this: to name what comes next. Not with cynicism, not with irony, but with courage, with clarity, with care. The power of naming is a spell. It calls reality into focus. The abolitionists named freedom before slavery ended. The suffragettes named equality before they ever saw a ballot. Martin Luther King Jr. named the beloved community before its walls had even been drawn. Naming precedes becoming. Without a name, we fumble in protest. We only know what we are against. But with a name, we rise in purpose. We begin to declare what we are for. We need a name for a world that centers human thriving, not endless extraction. A name for the system that will succeed what is unraveling. A name for the quiet revolution already happening in gardens, co-ops, mutual aid networks, regenerative farms, and open-source platforms around the globe. We call it humanthrivism. Why humanthrivism? Because words shape worlds. Human reminds us that we are not consumers, users, or data points. We are story-bearing, laughter-sharing, wound-healing, meaning-seeking beings. We are not here to maximize shareholder value. We are here to live. Thrive lifts us beyond survival. It says, food banks aren't enough. Universal healthcare isn't the ceiling, it's the floor. It insists on lives rich in purpose, creativity, relationship, and rest. ISM stakes a flag. It says, this isn't just a suggestion, a lifestyle brand, or a gentle hope. It's a system, a structure, a coherent operating philosophy for civilization. Humanthrivism is a call to reclaim the economy as a tool, not a tyrant. It is a way of saying, we are not just dismantling the old, we are building the next. The problem with post-capitalism. Many thinkers use the term post-capitalism to describe what's emerging, and while it may be technically accurate, it is emotionally empty. It tells us what's ending, but not what's beginning. It's like calling a tree a post-seed or a sunrise post-night. We don't just need a critique, we need a vision. We don't just need to resist, we need to rename. Post-capitalism is the silence after a scream. Humanthrivism is the song that follows. What a name unlocks. The moment we name a system, we can design policies that align with its values, organize movements with shared language, create educational frameworks that reflect its principles, inspire art, stories, and music that reinforce its culture. Define success not by default, but by intention. Think of what capitalism has built, not just economies, but imaginations. It shaped what we believe is possible. Now think of what Humanthrivism could build. A world where wellness is wealth, where the arts are funded like weapons once were, where time is abundant and belonging is standard, all because we dared to name it. Humanthrivism already lives among us. It's in the cities measuring gross national happiness instead of GDP. In the worker cooperatives, sharing profits and decisions. In the indigenous land trusts protecting water for generations unborn. In the mutual aid groups delivering groceries during pandemics. In the libraries lending seeds, the apps designed without surveillance, the classrooms teaching empathy as curriculum. We didn't invent this from scratch. We listened to the wisdom already living. We gathered the glimmers of a better world. We gave it a name, a roadmap embedded in a word. Behind the poetry of Humanthrivism is a practical framework. To name the next system is to define its architecture. A society where contribution is rewarded with dignity. A culture where ecological balance is law, not charity. An economy where profit is redefined as impact on thriving. A workplace where every voice matters and decisions are co-created. A structure where rest is sacred, creativity is essential, and every child is guaranteed the soil they need to bloom. This is not fiction. It is the scaffolding of a post-capitalist world that works for everyone. Naming is for the builders. You don't need a PhD to be a futurist. You don't need permission to reimagine the world. Naming is the people's power. Whether you're a teacher, coder, healer, artist, parent, organizer, or entrepreneur, when you speak the name Humanthrivism, you're helping shape the contours of a future worth inheriting. Mini call to action. Say it aloud. Say it to yourself. Say it to a friend. Write it on a napkin. Post it on your wall. Whisper it to your child at bedtime, Humanthrivism. Then ask, what would it look like if my neighborhood, my work, my country ran on this principle? Because naming it isn't just a declaration. It's a seed, and we are the soil. Chapter 3. Happiness as a metric. On a quiet morning in the mountains of Bhutan, a young girl skips barefoot along a trail flanked by prayer flags. Her mother weaves fabric dyed with river herbs. Her father teaches math in a village school. There are no shopping malls, no billboards, no economic boom. Yet by their government's measure, this family is deeply wealthy, not in money, but in meaning. This is not a fairy tale. This is policy. For over 4 decades, Bhutan has led the world in asking a question that capitalism never dared to. What if happiness, not profit, was our measure of success? In 1972, King Jigme Singye Wangchuck famously declared, "Gross national happiness is more important than gross domestic product." Since then, Bhutan has refined this bold statement into a full governance model, one that dares to quantify joy, connection, mental well-being, and environmental health as seriously as economists measure imports and exports. And in doing so, they cracked open a doorway. What if the goal of society wasn't production, but flourishing? Why GDP fails us. Gross domestic product, GDP, was born in the 1930s as a tool to measure a nation's economic output during the Great Depression. It did the job, efficiently summing up the value of goods and services produced. But what was once a tool has become a tyrant. Today, entire governments, elections, media narratives, and international policies hinge on one number. Did GDP go up? Yet here's what GDP doesn't measure. The mental health crisis engulfing entire generations. The burnout of caregivers, teachers, and nurses. The biodiversity loss signaling ecological collapse. The loneliness epidemic now more dangerous than obesity. And the creative, unpaid labor of raising children, growing food, or building community. Worse still, GDP often rewards harm. A hurricane? Good for GDP, so much rebuilding. A cancer diagnosis? Great, more medical spending. A war? Fantastic, boosts defense contracts and industrial output. Rampant deforestation? Excellent, lumber and land sales skyrocket. GDP doesn't distinguish between what helps and what harms. It simply counts money moving. In a capitalist world where profit is king, this blind metric reigns supreme. But under Humanthrivism, we ask a deeper question. What actually makes life worth living? Learning from Bhutan. Gross National Happiness. Bhutan's gross national happiness, GNH, is not just a poetic idea. It's a detailed framework with 4 pillars and 9 domains, including psychological well-being, time use, cultural diversity, ecological resilience, good governance, community vitality. In Bhutan, policies are measured against their impact on these values. A new highway proposal? It must pass the happiness impact test. A corporate license? Must consider environmental and cultural sustainability. Education reforms? Must enhance holistic growth. Bhutan has made mistakes, like any nation, but its willingness to treat human thriving as a measurable central goal remains one of the most revolutionary economic ideas of the modern era. Humanthrivism honors this legacy, then builds beyond it, from happiness to human thriving. The Ivy in the Humanthrivist model, we propose replacing GDP with a broader, richer metric called the Integrated Value Index, IVI, a multi-dimensional compass for civilization's success, where GDP asks, how much did we make? IV asks, how well did we live? The IVI would combine measurable data across key domains. 1. Well-being and mental health. Anxiety, depression, life satisfaction, emotional safety. 2. Ecological health. Biodiversity, air and water quality, soil regeneration. 3. Civic and democratic engagement. Voter turnout, community trust, public participation. 4. Time affluence and work-life balance. Hours of rest, leisure, caregiving, creative time. 5. Cultural and artistic richness. Access to music, language, storytelling, celebration. 6. Access to basic needs, housing, food, education, healthcare, clean water. 7. Innovation and contribution. Public-serving inventions, open knowledge, social entrepreneurship. 8. Economic equity, wealth distribution, wage fairness, mobility. 9. Relational well-being. Quality of friendships, family bonds, community connection. This isn't about reducing human joy to numbers. It's about directing national priorities toward what actually matters. Imagine watching the news and hearing, this year, the nation's IVI rose by 4.2 points. Youth mental health improved. Carbon levels dropped. Trust in local government surged. Child literacy and cultural participation reached historic highs. That's the world Humanthrivism invites us to build. What gets measured gets made. There's an old saying in management, what gets measured gets managed. In capitalism, we measured output, so we produced endlessly. But when we shift the metric, we shift the outcome. If we measure time affluence, companies will prioritize shorter work weeks. If we measure emotional well-being, schools will teach social-emotional learning. And if we measure ecological health, cities will compete to plant trees, not malls. As if we measure creativity and culture, artists will be funded like CEOs. Data becomes direction. Metrics become mirrors. What we count becomes what counts. This isn't a dream, it's a decision. New Zealand has adopted a well-being budget, allocating national funds based on health, connection, and equity. Scotland, Iceland, and Finland are collaborating in a well-being economy alliance. Costa Rica consistently outperforms richer nations in life satisfaction while maintaining one of the smallest ecological footprints on Earth. Canada has launched a quality of life framework. Amsterdam is measuring urban prosperity through donut economics. The momentum is real. What we needed was a name, a system, synthesis. That's what Humanthrivism provides. Happiness is not a luxury. It's a birthright. Capitalism often treats happiness as an outcome of economic success, something you buy when you've won the game. But in a Humanthrivist world, happiness is the purpose of the economy, not fleeting pleasure. Not Instagram dopamine hits, but deep, durable well-being. Happiness as the ability to be present with your children, to dance at a street festival, to heal without financial ruin, to learn without debt, to rest without guilt, to love without fear. That's not luxury. That's life. and our systems should be designed to protect it. Mini call to action. Take 1 minute and ask yourself, if happiness, not money, were your measure of success, what would change? Would your work look different? Would your schedule? Would your city? Would your values? And now ask this. What would it take for your country to ask that same question?